a business coach and author, and your guide today as we explore how to build a dream team, one that fuels your business growth and doesn't burn you out along the way. We're going to get started in just a minute or two while we let everyone in. That process does take a minute or two on Zoom. But while everyone's kind of getting in and getting settled, I want to invite you to do a couple of things. So turn on your camera if you feel comfortable. Faces always make these things feel a little bit more human, and that's why I haven't started the PowerPoint yet too, so we can see people's faces and say hello. Say hello in the chat, drop a line and let me know either where you're coming from or what brought you here today. I'd love to know a little bit about you. And just some ground rules: if a question pops up at any point, I want you to either go ahead and drop it in the chat or raise your hand, or even just pop in and ask the question, because I really love an interactive room. Again, as much as you feel comfortable or not, not going to force you to play along if you don't want to, but if the more you participate, the more you get out of it, and I do welcome your participation. So with that being said, let me just kind of officially get us started here. Oops. Here we go. Oh, interesting. Oh, that just moved these guys over here. Hopefully my lovely assistant has the chat well under control, and the participants well under control as we join, and I trust that he does. So let's officially begin. People are still joining, and again, as you join, feel free to drop in the chat who you are, where you're from, why you're here, whatever you want to share with us today. So like I said at the beginning, I'm Angie, and I've been coaching business owners and professionals for almost 18 years now. And in that time, I've worked with thousands of people to help them achieve what I call radical success. And that means in business and in life. And, let me tell you, the biggest game changer for sustained business growth isn't a better tool or a tighter marketing funnel. It's actually a great team. I've noticed particularly with people I've worked with a long time, once they get the right team in place, their business just grows leaps and bounds. So let me tell you about one of my clients. When we first started working together, she had two employees, a bursting workload, and a very tough reality. She couldn't take on more clients or make more money without more help, but the revenue wasn't there to really justify any more hires than the two she already had. So we did what smart businesses do. We got strategic. So instead of chasing more clients, we focused on getting better clients with larger contracts and longer retainers. And then we created a hiring plan that ensured the next person brought onto the team wasn't just a warm body, that they were the right fit for the business that they were trying to build. And when we fast forward to today, a few years later, she's got a team of 23 people and a multi-million-dollar company, and a schedule that includes, actual vacations. I know it sounds dreamy, right? So that's what we're going to dig in today: how to get there without winging it. So hello, Carrie Lee from Washington, and hello, Justine from North Carolina. Glad to have you aboard. So, all right. So thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I fully recognize that time is our only non-renewable resource, and it is my great honor that you choose to spend some of your time with me. So what you're going to learn today is hiring, leading, and keeping a high-performing team that isn't just about, you're going to learn it's not just about being a good boss or offering snacks in the break room. Those snacks can help. It's about clarity, strategy, and intention. And in this session today, we're going to cover how to attract and hire those A players, not just warm bodies. And I get it. You're overwhelmed. When you're overwhelmed, it's tempting to hire whoever's available. We've all done it. But the wrong hire costs way more than a vacancy. And we'll talk about how to avoid that hiring trap. And then we're going to talk about how to lead without becoming the bottleneck yourself, because from chief cook and bottle washer to actual leader can be tough. If you've ever said it's faster if I just do it myself, this one's for you. Then we're going to go into how to retain top talent without constantly throwing raises at the problem, because raises aren't the answer. Fair pay matters, but retention is about far more than money. It's about meaning, trust, and culture. And finally, I'll walk you through what your next step could be, which is a free resource that I'll send to you tomorrow and a coaching session that will help you apply everything that we talk about today in your team and your business so that you're not just inspired, but you're actually equipped to go ahead and take action. And don't worry, I'm not here to just rush you through a bunch of checklists. We're going to slow down and really look at each piece, what to do, why it matters, and how to do it in a way that actually works for you. I see we've got lots more people joining us. So as you join, again, feel free to participate. Feel free to type in the chat, ask questions as you want, and please drop a note in the chat, introduce yourself, and let us know who you are. So let's talk about why building your dream team matters. So we'll start with one of my favorite quotes. You don't build a business, you build people, and then the people build the business. And that's from Zig Ziglar. About three of my top quotes are actually from Zig Ziglar. And that's it right there, the core of today's topic. If you work on building the team will build the business for you. And I have seen this pattern over and over. Talented, passionate business owners and managers who are exhausted. They're doing everything themselves, spinning every single plate, and they're stuck in this frustrating loop of hiring people who either don't stick or don't step up. And the truth is, they're working on building the business brick by brick, but they're not building the people who are supposed to help them carry the load. And it's not their fault. No one teaches us this stuff unless we've been lucky enough to have a great mentor or a boss ourselves. So here's the healthy business cycle that we're aiming for. The leader focuses on building the team. The team focuses on serving the customer. The customer fuels the business, and the business supports the leader. It's a beautiful cycle. And if you have the right systems, expectations, and leadership in place, that's what we're going to make happen. Because that's when your business truly goes from being a job that overwhelms you into a business that supports you. So, the first most important thing in building your dream team is to hire right the first time. Hiring isn't magic, it's not intuition, and it's definitely not something that you do in a panic on a random Thursday after your top employee quits. Hiring is a process. Okay, yes, there's a little bit of luck involved, but luck only works when it's backed by clarity and strategy. So let me tell you about one of my most memorable hires from back in the days when I worked in the fashion industry. Years ago, I needed to hire what we call a showroom girl, basically a junior account executive to run our New York showroom because there was usually no one there. The rest of the sales team was remote, and we needed someone who could handle any walk-in traffic and work with small accounts and basically keep things moving. Within days of identifying and defining the role, this young woman from Florida knocked on our Manhattan showroom door. I kid you not, she was sleeping on a friend's couch and knocking on doors in the fashion district, trying to break into the business. She had zero experience, but she had chutzpah, heart, and drive. And I told her after the interview, if you want this, you have to move to New York and start within 2 weeks. And she did. And you know what? She was one of the best hires that I ever made. Yes, part luck, but also more importantly, we knew what we needed and what we were willing to train. And that's the difference. She had the attitude and skills. She just needed to learn to apply them to the fashion business. And too often, I see yes, Javad, the meeting is recording. So that was a good question. I will send everyone a link. The meeting is recording. I'll send you a link about 24 hours from when we started to the recording of the
Igual,
link,
igual que, ¿qué te dijo, Vara?
along with the resources.
Oh, negro.
No, pero con
Anyway,
leche, pero lo que ella quiere es bien
is somebody
poquito de
mute
café.
that's
Por
got
poco me copio de ti. Ay,
noise going on? Thank you very much. Okay, so let's see. Too often, I see business owners hire that are make bases on urgency or some vague assumptions like I just need help, or they seem nice, or they've done something like this before. I'm sure they could figure it out for me. And here's the thing: vague hiring leads to vague results, and vague results lead to frustration for you and for the person you just hired. So let's shift from reaction to intention. And before you even write the job post, ask yourself a couple of questions. What exactly do I need this person to accomplish? What skills are required versus trainable? What will success look like for this person in 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days? And then you follow my 3-step hiring process. First, we filter by values and skills. We have clear deal breakers and must-haves, and we know the kind of energy and character we want on our team. And we look for that in the resumes and the cover letters. Then we interview with purpose. So here's a fun fact for you. When we like a candidate, when we have that sort of instant connection, instant rapport, we tend to talk more during the interview about ourselves. And that means we don't learn what we need to know about them. We ask very few questions of them. Um, we need to learn to ask the right questions and the same questions of everyone we're interviewing, whether we have instant rapport or not. And we need to learn to listen more than we talk when we interview with purpose. And then after the interview, assuming they seem to have the skills and the attitude and the things that we're looking for, we need to assess cultural fit. The best resume in the world doesn't matter if someone can't work well with your team. You need to understand the culture and tempo and vibe of your company and look for people who fit within it. They'll be happier, and so will you. Bad hires, they don't just cost money, they cost morale, they cost momentum, and they cost missed opportunity. And honestly, it's not fair to them either. They could be thriving somewhere else with clearer expectations and an environment more suited to their personality. Hiring right is the first and most important step in building your dream team. And if listening to this, you realize that you haven't hired right, then it's time to start the unfortunate process of firing quickly and then hiring right. The old adage in corporate America is hire slowly, fire quickly. What I find in small business is the opposite: hire quickly, fire slowly. And it costs a lot of money and a lot of opportunity and a lot of momentum. Oh, I didn't realize these were had to pop up. All right. So now a couple of hiring tools, because if you've got a process and a system, you need to have some tools in place to make this happen. So let's just make this practical. I'm going to send you a free downloadable playbook after today's session. Again, it'll come tomorrow, 24 hours after the session, with some of our most used tools. And I'm going to walk you through a few of them quickly so you know exactly how to use them. So the first tool is called, it's not first in the book, but it's first I'm going to go with today. It's called Interview Questions That Reveal. And this is a group of creative interview questions designed to, identify someone's value and culture fit with your organization, to learn from their behavior and their past experiences, to understand their judgment and their motivation. These aren't, tell me what you did yesterday. These are questions designed to get them talk so that you can listen and learn about them. And the way that you use this tool is you just choose 1 or 2 questions from each of these categories and fit them into the rest of your interview process, which should include obviously some questions about background and experience and the skills that you've identified they must have. When you design your interviews with purpose, you get better results. And I alluded to this earlier, but most people who haven't been taught how to interview or aren't great at it or, aren't SHRM certified in HR, if you're in the US, they don't ask the same questions of every candidate. They sort of go in the flow. And therefore, when you're evaluating them at the end of the day, you don't have the same data to evaluate them. So you create interview questions, you ask everybody the same questions, you write down their answers, and then you compare them at the end. And then one of the next tools that I'm going to share with you is the A player checklist. This is basically a description of the 8 characteristics that A players share. They share your core beliefs and your business principles. They're aligned with your values. They have a track record where they're demonstrating results and outcomes, not just lots of jobs, but things that they accomplished at those jobs. They're good at problem solving. They think critically, they adapt, and they learn independently. They take initiative. They proactively solve problems without needing prompts. They're coachable, which means you can give them feedback. They're a cultural fit, so they enhance your team energy. They communicate clearly and respectfully, and they have an ownership mindset. And this score sheet is basically designed that after you do your interviews, you sort of score each candidate on each of these, and you see who has the highest score. And those are the people that are likely to be your A players. People that, have 6, 7, or 8 of these traits are, very good employees in general. So that is what you're looking for. And the next tool that we have for you is the role clarity template. This is actually the first tool that you would use once you decided you needed to hire someone. And there's some basic stuff, right? What's the title and who does it report to? But what is the mission of this role? What are the key responsibilities? What are the KPIs, the key performance indicators? How will you track success? What skills are required? What are the cultural fitness tests? How does this role evolve over time? And one of the single most important things to identify, which I've worked long and hard with many clients on this, is what is the single most important factor in order for someone to succeed in this role? Because obviously, if they don't have the single most important factor, they're not a good fit. So you start here in your hiring process long before you post the job plan. Andressa, no, there's not a presentation you're following along with. I'm going to send you these tools afterwards in a little workbook. So don't worry, you will get all of these tools that I show you tomorrow, which is really just a couple of them. So now these are a few tools that you can use. So again, to start with, hiring is the most important thing. You need to hire for attitude. You need to look for A players, but more importantly, you need to be clear in what you're looking for before you even start the process. And then, once we've hired some people, now it's on us to lead. And this is where my Radical Edge framework really comes into play. This is the basis that I use in all of my coaching, really on all subjects with my clients. And I'll show you how it applies to hiring. If you've worked with me or you've read my book, it's not really all about tactics. It's really about building a business and a life that actually works for you, that fuels your dreams. So here's how it works. First, we need to elevate. So you've got to start with your vision and your values. You can't hire or lead if you don't know where you're going. So we elevate first. What do you want? Who are you becoming? And what kind of culture do you want to build? And then we work on drive. And this is about making a plan and hiring strategically. You're not just throwing people at problems, you're building a system together with me that helps to drive your business forward. And then you work on growing. As the business grows, you have to grow with it. A 6-figure business requires a different version of you than a 7-figure business does. And growth means becoming the kind of leader who can lead the kind of business you're trying to build. And then finally, execute, because this is where a lot of people fall off. We make a plan and then life happens. Execution is about staying focused, being accountable, and sticking with it, even when things get messy. And a lot of my clients are entrepreneurs who've never had a job in a traditional corporate structure in their lives. They didn't learn how to manage people. They're great at doing the work, but not necessarily leading the team. And that's where the EDGE framework comes in. It gives them a system that they can trust. And once that clicks, the transformation is amazing. Suddenly, they're off the hamster wheel doing the strategic work that it takes to actually move the business forward. I often recognize that clients realize they've reached this point when either they take a vacation or something happens and they step away from their business for, more than a moment. So for a week or a month or longer, and they realize that their team was able to run the business without their everyday oversight. And that's the ideal thing, because then they can step up to the next level of leadership. So now that you've got your team and you understand the framework, you've got to learn to lead with impact. So, you've made the hire. Yay. You've done the hardest part. You found the amazing person, right? Or have you? Because this is the real work. Once someone joins your team, leadership starts, and that's not their job to figure you out. It's your job to lead them well. So let me just be blunt for a second here, because great hires do not guarantee great results. Leadership is the bridge between potential and performance. The best leaders that I know aren't born with superpowers. They work at it. They're curious. They listen. They reflect. They practice. What they don't do is micromanage or completely check out. They don't just assign a task and hope for the best, or worse, dump their problems on someone and call it delegation. So let's talk a moment about the difference between delegation and abdication. Delegation says, here's the goal, here's the support, and I trust you to run with it, and I'm here to help you if you need it. And abdication says, good luck with that. I hope you figure it out. And how many of us are guilty of throwing something basically at someone and saying, good luck with that. I hope you figure it out? Because I know we all have at some point. One of those things leads to growth, and the other leads to confusion, resentment, and far too often turnover. So here's the 4 things that leaders do consistently when building their dream team. They communicate expectations clearly. Do your best is not a helpful description. They coach instead of command. Leadership isn't barking orders, it's bringing out the best in your people. They create space for ownership. Give your team autonomy and learn to trust but verify. And they provide consistent feedback, not just once a year when HR makes you, but ongoing helpful feedback that develops people. So, and let me say this too, your people, they want to succeed. They're trying. If they're missing the mark, it's almost always because something wasn't clear, either the goal, the timeline, the tools, or how to interpret your 11 p.m. Slack message that you sent after 3 cocktails. So ask yourself this: have I set up my team to succeed? Or have I made assumptions about what they should just know? Clear communication turns good hires into great performers. So, hello? You have a question? Okay, no problem. All right, let's dive a little deeper into this communication idea because it's really the heart of leadership. Great leaders are great communicators. If you've ever found yourself thinking, why can't they just do what I ask? This part's for you. Here's the hard truth. They probably didn't understand the ask. Why? Because people receive and process information differently than you do. Some people are fast paced, others are more methodical. Some people want all the data, others just want the bottom line. Some love small talk, others think good morning is a full sentence. And this is where communication style clashes come in and where tools like DISC can change everything. So let me give you a quick overview of DISC. You have 4 basic styles and people are a blend of these things. D is the dominant, direct, decisive. These are the get it done people. They want results and they respect efficiency. You need to give them clear goals and move on. I's are the influencers, the inspiring people, the interactive people. They're fun, energetic, and they thrive on connection. Start with enthusiasm and don't skip the pleasantries. Good morning is not a full sentence for them. The S people are steady, supportive, and stable. These folks are loyal, thoughtful, and calm, and you need to give them time to process and avoid abrupt changes. And then finally, the C's. The C's are conscientious, careful, and correct. They're detail-oriented and analytical, and they want precision. You need to skip the fluff and show them the system. And, we have to adapt to people. So here's kind of how I do it in my coaching. For my D clients, I jump straight into action steps. For my I clients, we chat for a few minutes about weekend plans before getting to the agenda. For my S clients, they need assurance and space to ease into their decisions. And my C clients want the plan, the logic, and the spreadsheet, and they thank me for it. And here's the magic. Once I model that adaptation, they start doing it too. The D becomes more empathetic. The I gets to the point faster. The C lets go of needing to know everything, and the S learns to assert themselves in a stronger way. And that's what leadership is. So if you want to know your DISC style or you want to learn more about DISC and how to apply it, you can take a short assessment and get a full report that not only reveals your style, but it gives you actionable strategies for communicating more effectively with others. If you've never done it before, I recommend it. We just dropped a link into the chat where you can purchase an assessment on my website, and I'll also send it in your follow-up. In your follow-up, I'll probably also send you a sample DISC report because really the report itself teaches you a lot about DISC. So, and there's a second part of the communication styles, which is learning styles. You know, people learn there are four basic types of learners. We used to think there were three, but sort of modern research has added a fourth style. There's visual learners. They want to see the process. There are auditory learners. They need to hear it out loud. There are kinesthetic learners. They need to learn by doing. And there are digital learners. They want it written down. Do you think about when you're communicating, you need to connect with all of these people. So when you're creating training or giving directions or creating a process, you need to layer your communications, talk it out, write it down, record a quick video, walk them through it once. Clarity, communication isn't just about clarity. It's also about connection. Communication is the response we get, and too often we keep thinking people will respond differently if we keep repeating ourselves. But the truth is we need to learn to speak in a language that they can understand. So now to the next part. We've hired them. We've worked on our leadership skills. We've learned to communicate. Now, how do we retain top talent? You're leading like a rock star. How do you make them stay? Because, you know, let's be honest, turnover hurts. It costs time, it costs money. Sometimes it's emotional, and it definitely costs trust. And here's the news. Retention isn't about offering more money or throwing pizza parties on Fridays. People stay when they feel that their work matters, that they are trusted, that they are appreciated, and that they can grow. In other words, they stay for purpose and connection. And here's a real example. I have a client who works in the federal government, an intense and sometimes politically volatile environment, particularly right now. They were offered a very attractive early retirement package, just 2 years short of their planned actual retirement. And they didn't take it. They thought about it, but they didn't take it. Why? Because the team that they lead and the mission were too important for them to walk away from before they were finished. So think about that. When people feel seen, heard, and valued, they don't leave, they double down. So how do we create that kind of culture? Make the mission visible. Talk about the why. Do it all the time. Show appreciation. A simple thank you goes a long way. Build connection. This can be as easy as team check-ins, birthday shout outs, or asking about someone's weekend and actually listening to their answer. And talk about the future. Help your people see themselves growing with your business. Culture doesn't form on accident, it forms by default or by design. So let's choose design if we really want to build strong, powerful teams. In order to keep this all running without you going insane, you need to build some systems for success, because otherwise you're just running around trying to make people happy all the time. So we're going to talk about one of the least sexy but most essential parts of team building, which is systems. And I know that systems don't get all of the applause, and no one ever says, wow, that onboarding checklist, it just changed my life. Maybe some people, but not most. But here's the truth. Systems are the backbone of a sustainable success. They give your team clarity, they give you breathing room, and they allow your business to grow without turning into a stress factory. So here are 4 systems that I recommend for every team, no matter the size. Weekly check-ins. These don't need to be long. In fact, the best ones are short and sharp with just a few questions. What are you working on? What progress have you made? What's blocking you? How can I support you? You'd be amazed at what 15 focus minutes can solve. Next is you get into a feedback rhythm. People don't grow from silence, they grow from feedback. Set up regular touch points, monthly, quarterly, or even quick informal chats so people know where they stand. And remember, feedback should be honest and kind. You're coaching them, not catching them. Next, you need career pathways. Even in a small business, people want to know where there's somewhere to grow. One of my favorite examples comes from a spa resort that I know. A front desk employee started as a receptionist, got certified to teach classes to make more money, and now runs the fitness center. And that's progress, that's retention, and that's in a small business. What skills can your employees learn and take on more responsibilities and grow? I have another client who has employees that are fairly paid, but always wanting more money. And one of the ways that they make more money is to essentially learn new skills and take on new responsibilities that pay more. That's the way it should be. And finally, documentation. You need to write it down or make a video or at least make a recording. I once had a coach tell me, you only train a piece of paper once, and it stuck. It's so brilliant. Document your systems, write your SOPs, record a video, make a Google Doc, whatever works for you, but do it. It saves you time, creates consistency, and makes training the next person easier. I highly recommend, as a way to hit all of the learning styles, to set up your training where you essentially record videos showing people how to do things, and then you create transcripts from the videos that create written instructions. With AI at this point, it's very easy to take a video transcript and then have AI create a short checklist that you could put at each station. Think about if you've ever been to a fast food restaurant like McDonald's, you see little signs on the wall behind the stations. You can use your transcripts to actually create those nice quick checklists that keep people on charge. These systems are not about bureaucracy. They're actually about freedom. They allow you to delegate with confidence and scale without chaos. Well, I see everybody sticking along, so I'm hoping you're finding this valuable. If you have any questions, remember to stick in. We will have about 15 minutes for Q&A at the end. And so start thinking about your questions, because otherwise I'll have to ask you questions. Anyway, let's talk about a case study of a client of mine who inside a real transformation for a client of mine. One of my clients, let's call her Sarah, started her business in the basement of her rented house. She was doing everything herself: client work, admin, invoicing, social media, you name it, she owned it. She was working from early morning until late at night, drowning in paper and panic and falling behind every day. She had zero systems and a deep fear of letting go. And I remember her saying, if I stop moving, everything falls apart. And that's no way to run a business. That's a survival mode. So we started small. We defined her first hire. We clarified the role. We set realistic expectations and timelines. And we started building from the Radical Edge framework in the way that she led. And as the business grew, we added more structure: weekly meetings, task systems, feedback loops, a little thing called vacation for the owner. And today, Sarah runs a 7-figure business. She's got a beautiful office and a solid team, and she takes vacations like no laptop, no guilt vacations, and more than just a few. Her team isn't just staff, they're partners in the mission. They think like owners, they act like leaders, and they care like founders. And it all started with clarity, courage, and commitment to lead. This isn't a unicorn story. It's the result of applying what we've talked about today, one step at a time. And it can be your story too, when you take it day by day, one step at a time. So let's talk about your next step, because hopefully you're inspired today, but I also want to make sure that you take action. And again, I will be following up with the workbook, a link to the video, and some other resources that I mentioned. But if you're ready to take action, not just nod along, this is your moment. So book a free Edge activation session with me. It's a one-to-one session where we will meet to identify one key goal. Maybe it's your next hire, maybe it's a team challenge, or maybe it's been a system you've been avoiding creating. We'll create a focused 3-stage action plan to get you moving, and then you'll walk away with some clarity, confidence, and your next steps. We just dropped a link in the chat for you to book that if you want to jump on that right now. And again, I'll send you a link in the follow-up, and I look forward to meeting those of you who are ready to take action. This session is not a sales pitch in disguise. We've all been there, and I promise you it is not that. It is a genuine chance to take what you've learned today and apply it to your real world situation. We'll dig into one specific area and we'll make progress together. If you're stuck in hiring hell, or you're spinning in leadership overwhelm, or you're just not sure what your next team move should be, this really should be your next step. So let's get you unstuck and moving forward. So I'd love to connect with you. I put out regular content, usually 2 videos a week with actionable steps that you can take to grow your business. You can find them on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook, all of the places, that you would normally find them. I post regularly about leadership, growth, and strategies like these and more. My book, 52 Steps to Radical Success, is a year-long playbook of breakthrough strategies, many of which align perfectly with today's topic. And the full replay of today's webinar will be available there soon, along with my bi-weekly success videos. And don't forget, you're going to get an email from me with today's replay, a link to download your hiring success playbook, the DISC assessment tool, and a direct link to book your free Edge activation system. If you know someone who's hiring, who's overwhelmed by their team, or who's struggling to grow, send this webinar their way, because sharing is caring and karma is good in business. So let's jump into some Q&A. We've got about 20 people here. You can drop your question in the chat, or you can raise your hand. Hopefully I'll see that. I'm going to stop so we can see each other. Let's see if people are here. I'm here to answer your questions. And if we don't have any, questions popping off your mind, I can ask you some questions. So I'm going to open the floor to questions. Does anybody have one? Okay, here's your first question then. What's one challenge you've had when hiring somebody where things didn't go as planned? Is there a role on your team right now that needs more clarity or a better process to support it? If you could wave a magic wand and delegate one thing off your plate right now, what would it be? Have you ever taken a DISC or a personality assessment? What style do you think you are? And how does that affect the way you interact with others? And finally, which part of today's webinar gave you that aha moment or made you think of something differently? You ask yourself these questions and you listen for the answers, they can be very illuminating and really give you your next steps in finding true hiring success. So let me see, do we have any questions at all before we move on? All right, let me go back to my share. Oops. There we go. All right. So thank you again so much for spending this time with me today. I do know how valuable your time is, and the fact that you chose to spend part of your day with me live today, or even watching the recording later, working on your business and not just in it, really means a lot to me. And if you take just one thing away from today's webinar, let it be this: you don't have to do it all alone. Building your dream team isn't about finding unicorns or being perfect. It's about being intentional, clear, and committed to growth. So here's your path forward. Download the Hiring Success Playbook when it comes. Take this DISC assessment if you want to understand your personality. Book your Edge activation system and start building the team that's going to help you build the business and the life that you truly want. I know you've got this, and I've got your back if you need a little help. So let's go out today and build your dream team. All right, everybody, thanks so much for joining us. We're going to end now. I really appreciate your time. I hope you found this valuable, and I'm here to help you in any way I can. Please feel free to reach out and connect. Have a great day.